So, good day everyone. We are the Group 1 and our topic is the history of special and inclusive education. So, I'm Ma'am Crystal Shin Aranio presenting the introduction until the topic year 1949. And our group member, Ma'am Zyrel May Canonero, will be presenting the year 1950 to 1968. Ma'am Cristina Sofia Suelo for the year 1969 to 1976, Ma'am Joan Silvano for the year 1977 to 1995, and Sir Ignacio Tandejon for the continuation of the year 1995 to the topic of notable development in the recent years. So at the end of this discussion, we're expected to have traced the history of special education and inclusive education in the local and global context. So let's now trace the history and the development of special and inclusive education. Based on the book entitled Introduction to Special Education by Teresita G. Inchong et al., it was during the year 1902 and under the American regime that Filipino children with disabilities were given the chance to be educated. So it was Mr. Fred Atkinson, a General Superintendent of Education, who proposed to the Secretary of Public Instruction that the children whom he found deaf and blind should be enrolled in school like any other ordinary children. However, the country's special education program formally started in 1907. So it was 5 years after their proposal, and it was at this time when the Insular School for the Deaf and Blind in Manila was established. So Mr. David Parros, Director of Public Education, together with Miss Delight Rice, an American educator, both worked hard for this program to be possible. Mr. Barros worked for the establishment of the Insular School for the Deaf and Blind in Manila, and Miss Rice was the administrator and at the same time the teacher of that school. Today, the School for the Deaf is located at Harrison Street, Pasay City, and the Philippine National School for the Blind is adjacent to it and Polo Road. During the year 1926, the Philippine Association for the Deaf or PAD was composed of hearing impaired members and special education specialists. And the following year, 1927, the Welfareville Children's Village in Mandaluyong, Rizal was established. In 1936, Mrs. Maria Villafrancisco was appointed as the first Filipino principal of the School for the Deaf and the Blind. And in 1945, the National Orthopedic Hospital opened its school for crippled children, for young patients who had to be hospitalized for a long time. In 1949, the Quezon City Science High School for Gifted Students was inaugurated, and the Philippine Foundation for the Rehabilitation of the Disabled was organized.
In 1954, the first week of August was declared as Sight Saving Week. In 1955, members of the Lodge Number 761 of the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks organized the Elk Cerebral Palsy Project Incorporated, and the first Parent-Teacher Work Conference in Special Education was held at the SDB. In 1956, the first Summer Institute on Teaching the Deaf was held at the School for the Deaf and the Blind in Pasay City. In 1963, the training of Department of Education and Culture Teacher Schools for Blind Children started at Philippine Normal College. In 1964, Quezon City Schools Division followed suit with the establishment of the Quezon City Science High School for Gifted Students. In the year 1965, the training program for school administration and on organization, administration, and supervision of special education classes was already started. In 1967, Bureau of Public Schools organized the National Committee on Special Education. In 1968, The teacher training program for teachers of exceptional children was held at the Philippine Normal College for the next 10 years, and in the same year, the first Asian Conference on Work for the Blind was held in Manila. In 1969, classes for socially maladjusted children were organized at the Manila Youth Reception Center.
The same year, the School for the Deaf and the Blind in 1907 was reorganized into separate residential schools, and Paaralan ng Pag-ibig at Pag-asa was established in San Pablo City. The next year, in 1970, the training of teachers for children with behavior problems started at the University of the Philippines. And in 1971, DEC, or the Department of Education and Culture, issued a memorandum on the duties of special education teachers for the blind. 2 years later, the Juvenile and the Domestic Relations Court of Manila established the Tahanan Special School for Socially Maladjusted Children and Youth. In 1974, the first National Conference on the Rehabilitation of the Disabled was held in Quezon City. Subsequently, in 1975, the Special Subjects and Services Division was abolished. And in 1976, Proclamation 1605 declared 1977 to 91,987 as the Decade of the Filipino Child. In 1977, MEC, or the Ministry of Education and Culture, issued a Department Order No. 10 that designated regional and division supervisors of special education programs.
1978, the National Commission Concerning Disabled Person, later named to National Council for the Welfare of Disabled Person through the Presidential Decree No. 1509. 1979, the Bureau of Elementary Education of Special Education Unit conducted a 2-year nationwide survey of identified exceptional children who were in school. 1983, the Batas Pamansabilan 344 enacted Accessibility Law, an act to enhance the mobility of the disabled persons by requiring cars, buildings, institutions, establishments, and public utilities to install facilities and other devices. And after the year of the Labanan Special Education Center Division of Cebu City and the Northern Resort Association's Haynes Walk School for the Blind and at the Marcos Highway in the Baguio City were inaugurated. And 4 years later, the Philippine Institution for a Deaf, or the PID, and Oral School for Children with Hearing Impairment was established in the year 1999. The first National Congress on the Street Children was held at the Lazal Green Hills in San Juan, Metro Manila. 1992, the summer training for teachers of the visually impaired started at the PNU. And in 1993, the DSCS issued No. 14 that directed regional officers to organize the Regional Special Education Courses, or the RSEC. 2 years later, the first National Congress on the Mental Retardation at the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City, the first National Convention in Deaf Education.
In the year 1995, first National Convention in Deaf Education in Cebu City, and also the first National Summit for the Disabled and the Elderly. Year 1996, the third week of January was declared as Autism Consciousness Week. Year 1997, DSCS Order No. 1 was issued, which directed the organization of a Regional Special Education Unit and the designation of a Regional Supervisor. Year 1998, DSCS Order No. 5, reclassification of regular teacher and principal items to special education teacher and special schools principal item was issued, and also La Union Special Education Center was opened in the division of La Union. Did you know that President Rodrigo Roa Duterte has signed a law mandating all schools nationwide to ensure inclusive education for learners with disabilities? Republic Act 116.0, inked by Duterte on March 11/2022 provides that no learner shall be denied admission based on their disability. The implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act 11560 must be included in the admission systems and policies for all schools. The IRR, according to the law, shall include the provision of assistive devices, facilities, and infrastructure in the admission process and other forms of reasonable accommodation. Under Republic Act 11560, all learners with disabilities, whether enrolled in public or private school, shall be accorded services and reasonable accommodation based on the individualized education plan and shall have the right to avail of appropriate support and related services.
Enacted on March 11, 2022, House Bill number 8080 and Senate Bill number 1907 is now known as Republic Act number 11650, entitled An Act Instituting a Policy of Inclusion and Services for Learners with Disabilities in Support of Inclusive Education, establishing inclusive learning resource centers for learners with disabilities in all municipalities and cities, providing for standards, appropriating funds therefor, and for other purposes. A copy of this law is presented to Save the Children attorney Emma Salamani, Advocacy Manager, ENET Philippines, represented by Ms. Olivia Lucas, and the Coalition of Education of Children and Youth with Disabilities, represented by Ms. Celia Garcia. The law establishes inclusive learning centers in all schools districts to provide learners with disabilities with free and appropriate public education and related services in accordance with their needs in order to develop full potential as self-sufficient and participative members of society.